Hi everybody, how are you doing today? It's Marge Cohen. It's Thursday, August 17th. I was going to talk about some images that we're seeing lately in the social world in relation to the upcoming eclipse on Monday, but that changed after I saw what happened in the news today. It may end up that it's actually all connected. What this is going to be about here is asking what you and I, regular people, can do about what we're seeing in the world, um, rather than just feeling afraid or helpless or hopeless. So, if we look at what's happening in the world as images, and this comes from a tradition of archetypal psychologists like James Hillman. If we look at isolated incidents like shootings, violent incidents, mass casualty incidents, as a reflection of a larger disease process, and this is not a new idea. If something's happening on the surface of the body, there's probably something going on underneath. So if we're seeing something in the social world that keeps repeating, what is it a symptom of? What are we seeing? And if we break down the word disease, saying that it's reflective of a bigger disease, that breaks down into dis and ease. So what is the disease? And this is going to be under the broad umbrella of to be or not to be. What makes people decide to choose to live or not? And what is, looking at potentially, what is the culture's responsibility in helping people feel that life is worthwhile, and that there's meaning and purpose. In certain psychological theories, which you may have heard of, called object relations and attachment, the focus is on the very, very early bonds that children form with their caretakers. And we've heard of the concept of failure to thrive. So if those bonds aren't there, the baby may stop eating. It's really up to that initial holding environment, that initial relationships, to instill in a baby or a developing person that life is worthwhile, despite the pain and the suffering and the waiting, let's say for food or to be picked up, or to basic primal needs, that despite the frustration and rage and hopelessness and all those uncomfortable things, that life is actually worth it. So what happens if people don't get that experience when they're little, and then they grow up and they're in the society that we're in now? And I'm questioning what role does the society have in providing a safe environment for people to feel that they can thrive and that life is worthwhile. And this relates also to the notion of the death instinct, but it's more not only directed towards others, but directed towards the self, and that could be in a suicide. It could be in drug use that leads to overdose. All the ways that people fail to take care of themselves, and fail to keep life going. So whenever I see mass casualty incidents in the news, and most of the time we could trace a history of someone who's, let's say, doing poorly in school. Their relationships just ended. They lost their job. They're feeling disconnected and hopeless. But when I see, so there is obviously there's an individual component, and not everybody who's going through these things is going to end up crossing that line between thinking something bad and doing something bad. There's a huge difference between thinking and acting. But I still always I still always think, how is the broader society failing this person? And we're seeing that in the U.S., and obviously we're seeing that around the world. How we could look at it as a global. How are we failing? How are we failing as a global society to help people feel connected? Things are really, really disconnected. I wrote an article about this, so I'm actually just glancing at it and I start the article with a quote from Gregory Bateson, because I like to look to nature for answers. And in 1976, Gregory Bateson said, "The major problems in the world are a result of the difference between the way nature works and the way man thinks." Difference between the way nature works and the way man thinks. So I think really almost everything that we're living with right now is artificial. And we're seeing everything collapsing. So we need to figure out how can we rebuild and restructure so that things are working better for people. James Hillman, archetypal psychologist, wrote a whole book about how psychotherapy often focuses only on the interior of the person rather than what's going on in the social world. So I'm making an attempt here to open the lens out into the social world, and so I've thought of a couple ideas. What can we do? What can I do? I volunteer with local police and fire, and that's really helped a lot in terms of me trusting my local police, feeling that we're working together because there's so much antagonism. So that's one thing. I thought of this idea, and I'm making this videos to create a dialogue so that other people can either make their videos or respond to this about, what do you think we can do? What? Because I certainly want to do this in community, and we have to. So here's just some ideas that I thought of. Local barter stations. So these are local centers that are run as a free service by the cities or counties, where people can just bring things that they no longer want, and they can pick up things that they could use. So this is just a way to get some energy moving, and some cities have little booths with books that people can borrow or take. This is the same kind of thing, but with household items, electronics. It could be anything. I also really like the idea of community meditation centers in libraries, rather than have spas and meditation be some thing that people have to pay a lot of money for or go to some exclusive place to do. I would like to see county funds being used in the libraries for beautiful healing rooms. Beautiful, beautiful healing rooms that are quiet, where people can have some sort of shared experience of getting away from regular day-to-day life. Rethinking the nuclear family. Not everybody, this is for a couple reasons. Children's needs may not be met in their own nuclear family, This would give them other role models. Some people don't have a nuclear family. Some people are single. Some people, we need to, I think a lot's been happening already with how we're rethinking uh, only one way to exist or be an adult. What kind of groups can we have? I fantasize about hunter-gatherer groups of 150 because that's a really studies show it's a really good number. Not too many people, not too few. Just had a butterfly. Um, I have no interest in living in a commune, but I am interested in working or living more in community. And what does that look like? And I know there's lots of sustainable communities, and um, there's not very much. I'm in California. You'd think California would, I'm in Southern California between LA and San Diego, and there's nothing that I know of. And I don't want to live in a, hippie commune. I want something that can work in, a practical way, but maybe somewhere where I can go for dinner. I can cook one on Mondays and Joe can cook on Tuesdays, and reduce isolation and work. This leads to the next point of working together in teams. Rather than an individual seeking employment, maybe we'll be looking for work in teams. So the other thing is looking to nature for cues. We're living in artificial buildings that are square. There's a lot of hard edges. I would love to see more round architecture. I wonder if things would be a lot softer, if things were rounder rather than hard edges all over the place. And looking to nature, again, bees and ants working together. Okay, so this is some ideas. I would love to hear some ideas of what you have of how we can work together and rebuild and restructure things so that it really works for people and it helps people feel connected and that they have a place. Okay, so love to hear your ideas. Bye.